Welcome to Finding Alignment, where we will be having conversations on business, wellness, and relationships for living a more aligned life. I'm your host, Megan Romine, real estate professional, lifelong learner, and speaker. Each time I'm in the studio, I sit down with entrepreneurs, best-selling authors, and everyday high achievers to unpack the habits, boundaries, and mindset shifts that fuel sustainable success. Whether you're growing a business, nurturing relationships, or simply protecting your peace, this show is here to help you take one aligned step forward. Let's dive in. Today we have Anthony Lamacchia, broker and owner of Lamacchia Real Estate. We are so excited to have you today, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you have an incredible background. I mean, you and your team, I think by August of this year, you'd closed over $2 billion in sales, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Amazing. And you've been such a strong voice and strong advocate for us here in the real estate industry. So we cannot thank you enough. And I have so many questions for you.
Well, fire away. Thank you very much for the kind words. I certainly try as hard as I can.
Of course. So you're such a high producing person. And first, I want to ask for agents out there. And I can say that, I think like hands down, you have some of the best training that I've seen for real estate agents. And I just think it's amazing. Anytime that I see some of your content or anything that's going on, I'm like, wow, because you're really bringing value. And a question I'd like to ask you is for agents that, let's say they're already in the industry, right? And they're doing decent, but what do you find are some of like the best lead generators for these agents to really utilize in today's market?
Well, there's obvious ones, right, that you can buy like Zillow and Realtor.com. And then the most obvious one, which is arguably the most important, which is working by referral and educating your sphere of influence so that people are sending you business. I always talk about educating, and when you educate, you will attract. But I'd say those are the most obvious ones where people can spend money and immediately obtain leads. But after you do business for a certain amount of years, if you're staying in touch with your clients, my good friend Alan Dalton always says it's never past clients, it's clients. Right? A doctor doesn't say, that's my past patient. They say, that's my patient, right? And when we think with that mindset of having clients for life and being that true real estate consultant for life, that's really the best lead generator eventually if you're playing your cards correctly.
That makes sense. And I think that goes back to pretty much anything in life, like building relationships, right?
Absolutely. And staying in touch with people, showing people you care. And, for some of us, it's super easy. For some of us, it comes natural. And then I know for some agents, they need a little encouragement. And I always say we had management training this morning, and, I talk about a certain way to deliver a message, to say no, you cushion it. Then you deliver the no, you show some interest, and hey, is there another way? And I always say to management, if you guys don't actually genuinely feel this way in your heart, that you want to help people and try to be accommodating and show interest, then you probably shouldn't be in a leadership team in one of my companies.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe they're in the wrong industry then.
Yeah, no, you're right. But it really doesn't matter the industry. I mean, listen, my brother's the president of our family's landscape construction business that my dad started the month I was born. And my brother's the president there, and him and I talk about this. And I'm like, I don't care if it's a truck driver or whoever. When you actually develop relationships with people, show them that you give a damn about them. If you have to say no, you say no, but you show there's an interest in trying to accommodate or an interest in trying to be reasonable, it goes a long, long way with people, and it means a lot.
Yeah. And then leading into that, how do you feel like for what your purpose and what your passion is in life and in your business, how do you fold that into like alignment in general? Like, what does that look like in your life? Like, what is your overall like purpose and passion, and how do you tie that into the businesses that you run?
Well, I have, I think, a few purposes. I like to think I have 4 children. I have a nice family. But certainly is from a work perspective, actually genuinely caring about helping others achieve what they want is what will eventually get you what you want. I heard a great quote years ago from Zig Ziglar And it was told to me because I was speaking about the same thing. And someone said, oh, Zig Ziglar says that, but he says, the more people you help get what they want, the more you'll get what you want. And, I teach our management team, our leadership team that, guys, the more, like, if we want to grow this company and we want to make more money, it helps with helping the agents make more money first. And that's a big, big differentiator that many top agents, team leaders, and small broker owners just don't understand because they get too obsessed with their bottom line. And don't get me wrong, I like my bottom line too, but they get too obsessed with, the bottom line right now and stretching and squeezing every last ounce of profit out of today's income. Well, of course, I want to make what we can, but I want to set us up for success down the line, and for a bigger success. And when you genuinely operate with a mindset of I'm going to help others get what they want, it comes back to you in any area of life. The more you give, the more you get. I don't care what it is. We could talk personal relationships. We could talk anything you want. I went to martial arts class this morning, and the teacher messaged me. He said, hey, can you put on class? I'm not feeling well. Okay. A couple of students at the end said, I got to tell you, you're such a nice teacher. You genuinely care about showing us. And, I enjoy that.
I really think it's so important because it sounds so simple, but I think it's so good for people to remember. I mean, it's like a law of the universe. You have to keep giving, and also to be generous even when you don't feel like it, right? It's very easy for us to do it when we're like, business is great, things are good, but I think it speaks a lot about character and integrity whenever you give back, whenever you try to help, even regardless of like the highs and lows.
You're right. You're 100% right about that. I mean, one thing I say to my dad, he's had a small business forever, the landscaping business, and now my dad runs it. But I used to sort of argue. First of all, I learned more from him about business than anybody. Growing up, working there, I'd never be able to do what I've done if I wasn't working with him first. So I give my dad all the props and credit in the world. But one thing we would bang heads on years ago is when I was working there before I get into real estate over 20 years ago, and he would say, well, we can't do that right now because we're not doing well. And I'm like, all right, I understand if we can't expand or we can't buy an expensive truck, but handling a situation the way that it should be handled, whether we're in a good spot or a bad spot, that's a non-negotiable. And that's, how I run the real estate company. I mean, we're in the worst of times or the best of times, handling conflict resolution, client resolution with problems, agents being grumpy, whether we should work with them and work it out or tell them to find a new company. My answers are the same and consistent and disciplined, regardless of whether our bank account is stacking money up or not.
Yeah,
and that's really, really hard for people to do that are in business.
Well, another thing I was going to ask you is, what are some of the things that you do whenever you get to a point in business where you feel like, man, I just don't know how much longer I can go. Like if you get like mentally taxed or like physically taxed, are you taking like a little bit of a breather, or are you like playing the mental game of I can actually go further than like what I think like this mentality is? What does that look like for you?
Well, I never have experienced feeling burnt out to the point that I didn't want to do it anymore. I do remember when I left the landscaping company with my dad, I wasn't enjoying it anymore. Him and I were banging heads. I wanted to get into real estate. That was probably the toughest career time of my life. I was 23, 24 years old. Now I'm 44. But in the real estate setting, building this company and then other ancillary businesses off it, our Crush It in Real Estate training, our, other businesses that we're working on and that we have, property management, et cetera. I've never experienced that. But of course, I've experienced feeling frustrated or like I was banging my head against a wall. And one thing that I'm always willing to do, and I notice I'm a bit more willing to do it than others, is change. We're going through some managerial structural changes right now that I don't know that others would have done. But I saw the problem, I identified the problem, and I said, we're changing it. And if we piss a few people off along the way or disappoint a few people or make a few people feel that it might be more than they can handle, well, we're going to do it, and we're going to change, and we're going to adjust, and we're going to deal with the headaches. That's a big component to success that many people, they wouldn't be able to do. I mean, I started in this business with myself and one other person. She hit 20 years with us last month, and we're putting out a 20-year video with her next week. And there's no way we could have started from her and I and built to almost 1,000 people if I didn't have an attitude of, or if I was scared of change, is what I'm trying to say.
I think that a lot of people, in agents especially, agents sometimes don't like change, and they get nervous. Oh, well, what if it doesn't work? Or oh, what if it fails? But whenever you're deciding to make a pivot, I'm curious to know, are you deciding to make a pivot because you're looking at data and like number-driven data, or is it more of like an intuition, or is it a little bit of both?
Both. What isn't measured cannot be improved. So we're always measuring things. We have tons of dashboards. We built our own custom CRM, and I follow all kinds of reports. But our head of marketing, Lindsay, she's the vice president of marketing for the Lamacchia companies. I think you met her before.
Yeah. So yeah.
When we had an event in Florida, you were on our stage, and she always says, Anthony, these feelings, where do they come from? And I'm like, because I'll say, I have a feeling, I can feel it. We got to do this. And she gets frustrated because she's like, where does this feeling come from? And then she says, I got to say, your feelings are pretty accurate, though. So one thing is this, Megan, I listen more than I talk. Smart. And I talk a lot. I talk all day. I give speeches. I do trainings. But I will tell you, for as much as I talk, I probably listen twice as much. I'm an extremely intent listener, a very intense listener. When we're with agents, when I go to branch offices, at least once a week, we have luncheons. I'm always paying attention. I'm listening. I'm observing what the problem might be. I'm looking at faces. I'm observing, people say to me, "Oh, you're such a good speaker. How do you keep the crowd so riled up?" Well, I look at faces and I pay very close attention. So, that's a really important component to success. And even with me doing all this, we have screw ups. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. None of us are
I
perfect.
feel like we sometimes learn the most from our mistakes. I don't feel like you usually make it to the next level until you fail a couple times. And then it depends on like do you see that as failure or do you see that as growth? But that's just my opinion.
It's a great question. I really don't look at it as failure. I talk to my brother about this. I always say you never really waste money when you're advertising. If you do an advertising campaign and it fails, it's like, did you really fail or did that particular campaign fail? When that name right there is branded everywhere and, people know the name, it helps.
Yeah, I see you guys all over the place. Fort Lauderdale, all over the place, South Florida.
Yeah, we have a small to decent presence in South Florida as of right now, but up here in New England, we're a household name.
That's incredible. And then if you could say, and maybe like a blanket answer, for the real estate agents that maybe don't end up making it in the industry, do you think that it's because they are quitting because it's getting too hard? Or is there any particular trend that you see with agents that you think they could take it to the next level, but they don't? Do you see any kind of trend with that?
Yeah, they don't want to work. Listen, I am not going to talk badly about people who get out of the real estate business and go into something else. If that's what you need to do, and if you find something that you're better at, good for you. In fact, I texted with one of our agents about that today, who got into a different industry, and I could tell she was a little weird with me. And I texted her today and I said, hey, just to be clear, if this is for you, run hard, go for it. And if I can give you any help, let me know. And she texted back, said, thanks so much for saying that. I'd love it if I could bounce something off you. I said, great, let's talk later today. It's no problem if people don't want to be in the business. But if people truly want to be in the business, the first thing they have to get really, really good at is dialing this thing right here and actually talking, like dialing it and talking on it. That's step one to being successful in the real estate business, and truthfully successful in any business. I have a friend who owns a construction business who called me and was down last summer, very down on a Saturday morning. I lost this job. I lost that job. I had an employee leave. I said, you can dial your way out of anything.
So true.
Get on the phone, call every bid that you've done in the last 6 months that you didn't get that you want, and you'll get a ton of work. Literally at 1 o'clock that afternoon on a Saturday, I can't believe it. I brought in $200,000 worth of work. I'm like, I can believe it.
It works. And I always say this, and I sound like I'm a broken record, but even my friend the other day, he was doing other things in the real estate business, but he decided he was going to go back in and get some listings. All he had to do was start on the phones. He started on the phones. He's like, I had 80 conversations today. I had 3 listing appointments. And you just do that consistently, but a lot of agents don't want to do it.
No, they don't. And also, let me point out something else. It isn't their priority. Okay. So for me, my priority is sales and growing the company. So today, throughout the day, I had a ton of meetings this morning, 9, 10, 10:30, a training with all management, 11:15. In between those meetings, the calls that are normal calls, I return later in the day. The calls that are related to, like I had one of our top agents call and say, hey, such and such owner of such and such brokerage over there just called me and they want to talk to you about selling. Which call do you think I returned first?
Yeah, the second one.
If it has to do with sales, I am always dialing those people first. And that is in my makeup. It's not like I have to tell myself, right? And I've learned that because when you're running a business, the number one thing is you have to crank the effing cash register. I say it all the time. Crank the effing cash register, and everything else will fall in line. So that's my focus. That's my priority.
No, and what could you share with us about what your schedule looks like? Because I always see on Instagram and you're posting, 4 a.m. and how disciplined you are with your schedule, how much of your success has contributed to that, do you think?
Oh, getting up early in the morning it's the number one habit I have for being successful. I am up somewhere between 4:30 and 5 every day. It depends the day. It depends, what's going on. I don't usually use an alarm. I usually just wake up. So that's regular for me. That's normal. As far as the rest of my schedule, I have a lot of meetings all day, every day, meetings with management, tackling issues, usually at least a sales meeting or two. And when I say sales meeting, that's either with a big agent that's joining our company or it's another owner. And I'd say probably an average of one sales meeting a day like that. And, other meetings that'll generate business down the line. But when I say one sales meeting, I'm talking about one formal scheduled sales meeting. I'm not talking about the calls that I make, the texts that I send, the one-off quick ones. Like this morning, I got on right here, sitting right here with an owner of a company somewhere, and we spent an hour and 20 just talking. I could tell that selling the company was such an emotional thing to this person that we just got on here. I didn't present nothing. I didn't brag. I just talked. And that'll come back around. I know it will.
And are you working essentially 24/7? Are you taking breaks? What does that look like?
No, I'm not. My schedule is a lot better. 2024, I worked more than I ever have in my entire life. We bought 7 companies, and the lawsuit implementation was done. And I think that I heard you give me credit for it. I was very involved in speaking about that publicly. Plus, we created our own forms, and I did a ton of training on it, not only for our company, but we sold. I remember classic realtors. We launched the training a week before the implementation date, right? 2 days before everybody buys, we sold $17,000 worth of courses the day the implementation took place, one day. And I'm like, where have these people been for 60 days? But that's realtors. They love to put things off and wait till last minute. But that was a crazy year last year. I pretty much ate, slept, worked, or did something with my kids. That was it. This year, much better. This year, I'm probably working 12-hour days, 5 days a week, and 3-4 hours on a Saturday, 3-4 hours on a Sunday, which I do early in the morning. So I tend to, like on a Sunday, I'll come in here sometimes at 5 a.m., be home by 8. Everybody's just getting up. They don't even know I was gone.
And I think that's just the reality of the situation. And a lot of what people don't see is how many cumulative hours that it takes and how much consistency it really takes to start seeing results. I expanded my business and I didn't see the light of day for 8 months, right? And that's just what it is. And I think adjusting your mindset around it too.
If you take someone with equal skill, 2 people with equal skill, one works 80 hours a week, one works 40. I work a full year by about month 5.
Compounding time. Compounding
What's
time.
that?
It's called compounding time. It is like, people are like, what's the secret? The secret is work more, because you can get done more in 2 years than what it takes someone else to do in 5 years.
Correct. No, it's 100% the truth. I'm 44 years old. I started saying when I was 40, I've already worked a lifetime, and it's true. Um, I mean, listen, the notion of work smarter, not harder is bullshit. I mean, it's a complete bullshit lie. Unless for those that want to get really ahead, like I'm not on this earth to, build a real estate company that does 3 billion a year and be perfectly happy and sit back and relax. Like that's not what I'm here to do. So
I love that. Well, the thing is that, like you said in the very beginning, it's the ripple effect. Like you're helping so many people, and you're affecting so many lives. And I'm sure that you sit down and think about that. But I mean, I think that's just such an incredible thing. And we're like so thankful to have you in our real estate community. And I also wanted to hear more about, it looks like you have a book coming out. Is that correct?
yeah. So my friend Alan Dalton and I are coming out with a real estate consultant certification. So agents are going to go through about 8 or 9 weeks of courses, a couple hours a week, and then we'll give them a certification from Crush It in Real Estate. The book that's coming out is going to be about developing a consultant mindset, and of course, mixed into it will be various things about my career and other things.
Amazing.
But
And
that'll all be out by the end of the year.
when are you finding time to write the book?
Well, it's a lot. I'm doing more editing and sending voice notes. I'll tell you a little tip to those wanting to grow their businesses without, in the most efficient way possible. Using voice memos is basically how I run my companies. I send voice memos either to my assistant to send out emails. She types them and sends them, or I'll send the voice memos directly to whoever's working on something. It is the biggest time saver. And it stops me from having to repeat all day long. I tend to talk fast.
And if you could pick one thing that you think that you do that really helps your team and your business to really inspire other people, what do you think that would be?
That's a big question. If I could pick one thing that really helps me inspire and help other people, I would just say educating. When I get up in the morning, I am always thinking about teaching others. I just said that to management this morning. I said, guys, if you noticed, since January, I have been obsessed with making your day easier by arming you with how to answer questions, whether it's pre-typed emails, whether it's the training course that I built for them where they can go in and watch videos of me explaining how to be a good leader or listen to the audio. I said, but that's my obsession. So when I get up every day, I'm thinking, who can I teach today? Who can I educate today that will cause an attraction? Cause an attraction to the company, attraction to me. Because the truth is, we're in an information age where people can get information very quickly. Look at AI. I mean, artificial intelligence and the way that things are being computed through artificial intelligence is fascinating. And you had better be ready. The market, the realtors out there, people in business, they better be ready to deal with that or they're going to have a problem.
I agree with that. I think it's all across the board. Any business and anything that you're doing, you need to be implementing AI into the business. And I'm making the assumption that you guys are implementing AI into your businesses.
We are in classic Anthony Lamacchia fashion. I put it off for a while, but then when I jumped in, now I'm jumping in with 5 feet, which I'm known to do. I have a tendency, Megan, to delay on doing something that maybe we should do sooner. But when I do it big, and that's why it sticks. And I had to have a conversation with someone that we do business with recently about that. I said, look, we don't do things in a hodgepodge manner here. When we do them big and they stick. And, there's a Boston Business Journal article somewhere around here, front page of the Boston Business Journal about 6 years ago. They did a story on me. And they said, I'm always on offense, but it also said, everything I do big. They quoted me. I swear it's like right there.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. I am a big believer in that. And, that's a big thing that people struggle with is like rolling something out and making it stick. And that's not easy. And the way you make things stick is consistency and discipline. Consistency and discipline. And you have to make sure you have the right things in place to do that. And like I said, I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. I mean, we have struggles, but, we are growing at a good clip. Last year we closed, what did we close? I can't even remember, 2.5 billion in business. And this year we're going to close about 3.5. So, we're growing, and we have a vacation rental company, property management. I sold some of the property management units, but some of it we have. We're getting into other ancillary businesses I can't announce right now. Although I'm sure you'd love some breaking news. But
Of course.
we have, the training company, Crush It in Real Estate. We put on events. We put on trainings. I'm putting on an event in November for broker owners and large team leaders on acquisitions. How to acquire other companies, how to acquire other teams. That's in November. And, these events that I put on, like the event you came to was a realtor event, and you were an awesome speaker. You added a ton. You do a tremendous job. You should be very proud. But these events that I put on for leaders, they're $10,000 a head. And we teach people how to acquire other teams, how to acquire other brokerages. That's going to be this event. The one last year was the growth playbook, how to morph your team into a brokerage, because that's what I did. And, these are high ticket events, but they're a lot of value, and we teach people how to grow.
Anthony, they say that it is so important, the top 5 people that you surround yourself with, and that you actually have traits of the top 5 people you surround yourself with. Now, obviously, you have your beautiful, amazing family, but in business, do you have any mentors or anyone that kind of helps support like your ethos system?
So I have the same group of friends that I've had since I was a teenager. That hasn't changed. And, but obviously, some of them are more into business than others. And in the business world, I've learned to always work to hang out with people that have larger companies. So I distinctly remember 20 years ago going down to Arizona to meet with a small team, and they taught me television. And then I started meeting with larger team leaders, and then eventually met with brokerages, and then huge brokerages. And that's what I do now. I'm always trying to hang out with people above me, and that's a great thing to do. As far as mentors go, I don't know that I could name one, but I certainly look up to a lot of different business people. I've read every president's book back to President Reagan.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time too, it's like you said, gathering information, right? And like for me, if I want to be in the room, like I want to be like, I don't want to be the smartest in the room, that's for sure. I want to, how can I add value to other people, right? That's such a big thing. And just be able to learn and grow more, because I feel like that's what we're here to do.
Hey, I never have the problem of being the smartest one in the room.
I don't find that true, but Anthony, thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic. Any last thoughts that you want to leave us with? No,
I mean, for those that enjoy it, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. I put out a lot of content, and hope to hear from people. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Finding Alignment. If you found this episode helpful, please like and subscribe. I would love if you could leave me a review. And if there's anyone that you would like to hear from on the show, please let us know. Thanks for tuning in.